Okay, my guest will start off with that subject matter. Mr. Segun Shomi is a former spokesperson for PDP Presidential Campaign Council, as well as Dr. Omar Ado, who is a member of the PDP. They both join us from our studios in Abuja. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning, team.
Morning.
Okay, let me start with you, Dr. Ado. Well, this, of course, there are mixed feelings. There are different strokes for different folks in the same party on this subject matter. So today, we expect the court to give a decision because it's not the first or the second time, so who knows. So let's start with getting your impression about this matter, because we've heard people members of the party who have said, look, well, let Mr. Secondus sheath his sword, just take it easy, calm down, you won't die if, you just come back to the fold. Party has decided. So, do you share the thoughts?
Thank you very much, Chamberlain. The case before the court, actually before Nigerians, is a case of justice, of rule of law, and of honesty. A political party is supposed to be an organization that is bound by rules. When you don't follow the rules, then you alienate a whole lot of people, because the only thing that binds us all together as members of a political organization is the Constitution, is the rule. So when the rule and the Constitution are put aside, then the party will have problem. And that is the source of the problem that PDP has today. They have tried to remove Uche Secondus as the national chairman of the party for some ulterior reasons. Everybody has a reason for one thing or the other, but you must do your thing within the rules. And when they did not get it through the rules, they now went to the court and get the court to lend its support to their agenda. And therefore, you should know, one, Secondus didn't take the party to court. It is those who want to rule the country by subterfuge that went to the court and sued Secondus and then removed Secondus. So Secondus has just appealed against this apparent injustice. We must not allow the disparaging of rule of law, of injustice, and of dishonesty to be entrenched in our system. It will destroy the system. It is the reason why the system has fallen as it is today.
So, Mr. Shomi, he suggests that the party is at fault in this case.
I think I have been more agonized by asking myself what makes the democratic experiment in Nigeria so predictably cumbersome. I take the view that, yes, political players, by its very nature, will try to take advantage of every lacuna or every loophole in the system. But I would expect that a party in opposition will be more concerned with giving itself the necessary stability to be able to show to the people that while it's in opposition, it has reformed itself, its own process to such a degree that it can now be reasonably expected to be able to be different from the way it's been in the past and why the people rejected it. In this particular case, when it started, I had admonished that there were three options that we should consider very well. The first option was that if we could look at the issues broadly, perhaps we may find out that in a bid to solve a minor slight, we were going to create a bigger catastrophe before us. The second option was that I had admonished that, look, there comes a time where people must make sacrifices in the overall interest of any organization, be it a party, a country, a family. And then the third was that perhaps at the end of the day, the courts will have to help us determine what is the appropriate way of doing things. And I must say very frankly that it's quite painful to watch PDP stumble around the same things over and over. In its history, it has acquired the notoriety of not being able to allow its executive committee complete their tenure. Sometimes they say it's this issue and that issue, and they do not even have the painstaking calmness to set whatever issue they're putting through their own process. So we'll have to wait. Those who say, why did Secondus respond in court? I think those are the ones who really don't understand how democracy works or how human rights and people's rights to say, no, I have not been fairly treated well. But for it to be happening at such a cutting-edge period where less than 24 hours to a convention, we're still awaiting a court order or a judgment or a pronouncement of court, it takes you back to the inglorious era of the Alimadu Sheriff and all of the things that we went through to exit that. And you would have hoped that if the party and some of the personalities that are playing, if you like, the devil over this case, they would have learned from that and they would have been probably more, they must have had the ability to say, okay, this is the issue, let us sidestep it. Why will a political party as old as the PDP not have enough structures within its own organization to check some of the things that have now come to be called excesses? If they be financial graft, why do you not have a financial accounting and auditing framework that makes that kind of nonsense impossible? If it is excessive abuse of office, why do you not have your own internal disciplinary actions that set up the flag? There are many reasons why one is a little bit unhappy. But I must add very quickly, you only need to look at what's going on in the other political party before you become really sad. And you get sad because you ask, what is it about the African, or at least in this case the Nigerian, that makes it extremely difficult for us to calmly understand that the democratic ideal is what must be protected? You know why? Because once you start to run democracy, you really cannot realistically expect to bat a government that is going to do what the society wants if you are not having a democratic posture that serves as a first safeguard to that democracy. So for me, it will be interesting to see how the court rules. I would just admonish and beg that all parties to this activity must understand that it has taken many years for us to get to where we are, first as a democratic country now, then as PDP, and that there is no grandstanding gain for anybody if this is where we found ourselves. But all in all, I think when you compare it, you will see that it's not just the PDP, it's the way we have allowed the democracy to grow. And I profile
well, Mr. Shomi, you have indeed spoken about the effect of this on democracy at large in Nigeria. If I could just come in now, Mr. Shomi. So you have also, stretched this to its overall impact on democracy on Nigeria, looking at it from a wider perspective. So let me take this back to Dr. Ado. And first, let's talk about this maxim that says that no individual is bigger than a party. I know that time and again that has been said in your party and even in other parties. So when you say someone should be a party man or someone is a party man, essentially, and you always hear when people are selected, you hear them say, well, this is a party man, a fantastic party man who sticks to the ideals of the party, who, of course, I imagine that means that this individual is not trying to be bigger than the party. So in this case, when you look at the whole proceedings, how things have gone, the party saying, well, when I talk about the party, the major party organ saying, we have slated the convention, and this seems to be just an individual trying to pull the party back. Would you still say then that this is an individual not trying to be bigger than the party?
No, certainly not. It is not the issue of individual. It is the issue of core principles. It's the issue of principles of justice, principle of rule of law, principle of honesty. These are the core principles that have been trashed by those who want to take over the party by any means. It is not about Secondus. Secondus is just an individual. But when attack these core principles of democracy, then you put the entire democracy at risk. And that is what we are talking about. We cannot accept to play a game that has no rules, to play a game that is unjust, to play a game that does not believe in the core values that set up this game. Democracy is a game, politics is a game, but they are all bound by rules. So this is it. Let us not reduce it into an issue of individuals. Personally, I have gone to court against the PDP 11 times. Over the period of 10 years, I took the PDP 11 times to the court. 5 times at the court of at the High Court, 3 times at the Court of Appeal, and 3 times at the Supreme Court, all on the issue of injustice, on the issue of disparaging rule of law, on the issue of dishonesty. So when a party is endemic in this kind of things, you know, the party kills itself. Now, my colleague here made reference of Alimodu Sharif case. The same people who brought in Alimodu Sharif against wise counsel, that you shouldn't bring Alimodu Sharif, he will only come and destroy this party. These are the characteristics of this guy, so don't do it. They insisted that they know everybody in this country. They insisted that because they are holding public office and they are the, what you call the oligarchs of the party, that they will do as they please. And they went and brought Alimodu Sharif, and it caused us a lot of problem. In fact, I can assure you, it is the Alimodu Sharif case that was centrally responsible for PDP to lose the 2019 elections. And they have not learned any lesson on that. This same group went again to remove Secondus 40 months before his term. We have no problem of removing Secondus. The political party has no problem of removing Secondus, but the political party has stipulated how
are you alluding that
leadership
because some days ago, we've been told that this is a decision taken by the national organs of the party. So it wasn't a unilateral or just a certain group's decision, that different organs of the party acceded to that, and they have agreed to move on from that.
Chamberlain, I don't want us to look at the substance of this case, but if you look at chapter 10 of the PDP constitution, which deals with discipline, it has stated clearly how a national leadership will be dealt with. It has stated that only NEC and only NEC alone can remove or discipline a national leader. But you can't go to a ward and then get the ward to discipline him. Then you come to local government and say, local government, you know, affirm this discipline, and then you take this thing to court, and you take it to court as ex parte. Ex parte is where the court will hear only one side without hearing the other side, and then take a decision until the other side is being heard. Then this ex parte order now became a full judgment. Don't forget that.
Let me just put this in.
Chief Justice of the Federation.
Right. If I could just put this in, recall that the same appeal court struck out that suit challenging his suspension. This is the second leg we're waiting for today, but first it had struck out that suit that was challenging his suspension.
I'm not aware of that.
That was on Tuesday.
I'm not aware of the Court of Appeal. No. The Court of Appeal did not do that on Tuesday. You got it wrong.
Okay, so what did the court do then?
What the court did on Tuesday, as the lawyer just said, was that, okay, all those who want to come in, and then to have served your, the court gave 48 hours, 24 to this, 24 to that, and then gave 12 o'clock that you come and then let us listen to you. And that was what happened.
So that was for the conduct of the convention. Dr. Ado, what you're talking about is for the conduct of the convention. Don't forget that there were 2 issues. One was for his suspension and then the convention.
About the issue of the convention. You see,
but we just listened to his lawyer saying that he wasn't trying to scuttle the convention. We just listened to the lawyer saying he was just asking that the convention be held off while this issue is determined. We listened to him.
Certainly, that is what happened. If the court was to take the decision after the convention, like say on Monday, Tuesday, then the court would have now determined on the issue of injunction, restraining the convention. But the court said, we are going to determine it before the date of the convention. So the issue of determining on the issue of the injunction, does not even arise.
So there are two issues here, Dr. Ardo, and I don't want us to mix it up. So there's the issue around his suspension, which I referenced, and there's the issue of the convention, which we expect will be decided today. But regarding his suspension, I am telling you that on Tuesday, the Court of Appeal sitting in Port Harcourt dismissed an application challenging the suspension of Mr. Uche Secondus from the PDP.
So you are telling me that Uche Secondus' appeal against his suspension was dismissed, correct? Is that what you are saying? If this is what you are saying, then what is the court going to determine today? If they have dismissed this application of his suspension, the court cannot sit down today to determine on the issue of injunction, because that will not have even aroused whatsoever. So this is the situation. I don't want us to mix in. I was not in the court myself, so I do not know for sure what happened, but I've been very close in the whole matter, and I know what happened. We've been monitoring it, and we know that this statement that you have said is substantially not really correct.
And Dr. Ardo, you said you're not in court and you're not quite clear, and still you say it's not correct. But maybe Mr. Shomi, I just told you what played out in court. But Mr. Shomi, perhaps you have, I mean, you clearly were not in court as well. But what is your opinion on interpretation of this? Because it appears interpretation is different.
I'll put it to you this way. My concern is not exactly how the case is going. No. I'll be more interested in what the very learned judges of the Court of Appeal finally decide. But in the meantime, my worry is this. Shall a future president or chairman of a political party sitting in his party office in Abuja and doing the work of a political party spend all of the time in that office worrying about how activities in his ward is going to such a degree that a collective endorsement and vote and enthronement done from all of the numerous thousands of wards in Nigeria that accumulated in a national convention, shall all of the intentions of the party members and the collegiate that install an executive, shall it be reduced to the recalcitrant activity of a ward chairman sitting in just one small ward of the country who will say, I have suspended the almighty chairman of a political party, and that would then be the basis by which a political party will lose its leadership. Anybody who loves democracy and understands democracy must be uncomfortable with that. And I put it very firmly that I am very uncomfortable, because you will create a precedence where a national chairman will not be able to sit in his office and run around the entire country to make the party stable, but will now spend all of his time managing the dynamics in one very infinitely small part of that whole, and that would then be the basis by which democracy will grow. No, that can't be right. There are laid down procedure in the
just one second,
the
Mr.
constitution
Shomi.
of the country, the constitution of our party.
Yes, just one second. There are a number of issues that you have raised. My apologies. You've raised a number of issues, especially concerning the role of an institution, which is a whole political party, as opposed to the individuals that are playing it. Both of you seem to be on the same page as to the fact that the issues are more personal than institutional. And you've also referenced the fact that political party playing generally in the country seems to be going in the same way. It would seem then that the power is only left for those who play the politics, only for their interests, as opposed to the interests of the people that they're supposed to be serving for getting into the systems in the first place. Does that mean that the people are helpless?
Well, that's why you will see I said a democratic party is the first safeguard for democracy. The ideal that we call democracy imagines that people will join political parties because political parties are organizations governed by rule created by law. Therefore, within the rule book of a political party lies all the means and ways of getting its activities administered. In this case, we're talking about the PDP. That is what it ought to be. Now, because it has interference with humans, human beings of their very nature will try to do all sorts of things to take advantage. But no matter the advantage that they are trying to take on a political party, they must be guided first by the rule, then they must be guided by the law, then they must be guided by what exactly is the ideal of a democracy. And I say again, forget the personalities that is involved today. Some other personalities were involved yesterday, day before yesterday, and 3 circles ago. Why should a political party that was created in 1998, formed government in 1999, ran it for 16 years, lost election in 2015, stayed in opposition for the number of years it has stayed in opposition, and still comes to the public space with this kind of extremely irritating system that suggests that it does not even understand what its role is in a democracy? And I said, the agony for me is that you look at the alternative political party and you see them not even trying to be better. At best, they are running their party on some kind of caretaker that has lasted on for too long. You look at the Congress that
like,
done there,
well, it would seem like the people, you have been judge and jury on this case, it would sound like, because, I mean, if the opposition, just a second, if the opposition was doing any better, I don't know if people would have preferred the party in power now as opposed to the PDP, which you also mentioned. But let me take this to Dr. Ado. You also spoke about the institutional challenges in the political party. The question on my mind right now is, if the rules are there and they are strong, how come the rules that govern an institution like such an important opposition party not being followed, yet the party is still struggling to be an opposition party?
Thank you. That is the problem. You see, it is not about the rules. It is about the operators of the rules. The rules are there. If we had followed the rules, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Dr. Ado,
the rules have always existed for the benefit of all members.
Just a second.
But the rules are never obeyed.
Does that mean that the system is not strong enough to challenge the individuals that are taking advantage?
Now, the best place for you, if you try to get the rules followed and the protests fail to do so, the only place for you to go is to go to the courts. And that is what people like us did all this while. You see, while these iniquities were being done, especially done to individuals like me who were not holding public offices, now they have done it to somebody who is holding public office. They have done it to the chairman of the party itself. So the office of the chairman of the party itself would have been compromised if this thing continues. And that is what the PDP has been suffering of. So those operators who operate the rules are the ones who don't obey the rules. And it is not just on the party issue. I will give you a typical example, and it is so disheartening. If you look at the provision of the Nigerian Constitution, section 68, subsection 1G, on the issue of national legislators, the Constitution says where a national legislator who is a member of a political party is elected into a legislative office and he crosses over to another political party before the end of the term for which he was elected, he was to step down. He was to step down from his seat as a legislator. But subsection 2 of the Constitution states that it is the leader of the House that will now effect this is stepping down. That is to say, the leader of the House, either the Senate President or the Speaker, will now write to INEC and say, INEC, this guy was in this political party and he crossed to this political party, and that there was no any division in his political party, and based on the provision of the Constitution, he ought to vacate his seat. So we are writing you to please come up with a timetable and elect somebody. But did the Senate, in my state, Adamawa State, A senator left PDP and moved to APC. It doesn't matter because I'm PDP. It could be any political party. But did the Senate President invoke the provision of the Constitution? No, the Senate President did not do so. Why? Because it is the political party of the Senate President that benefited by this cross-carpeting. So what you have happen here is that the Constitution, provision of the Constitution of Nigeria has been politicized. And when you politicize law, you have destroyed the system. We have seen it in the House of Representatives. We have seen it in the House of Assembly in Zafara. We have seen it in the House of Assembly in Cross River. We have seen it in the House of Assembly in Anambra lately. None of them has left the political parties, left their seats after crossing over. And there was no qualification of the position of the Constitution was never met. So it is not just the political party, it's the entire operators. Where political
there are many who think that
crashed with rule of law.
Political parties got the country to where it is today because they are the ones who were in the saddle making all of these laws, and that's why the country, as you used the word struggling, will be struggling in getting certain things right. But let's talk about perhaps a little wider implications for this, internal democracy within political parties. So both of you have been there over time. I know that in those parties, they will always tell them, well, if the party takes a decision, if you're a loyal party man, you have to accept it and move forward. And that's why they say, don't take the party to court. Both parties incidentally seem to be strong on that one. So give us your recommendations. Let me start with you, Dr. Ado, briefly, so we can also bring in Mr. Shome on the same matter. What would you gentlemen suggest? What kind of steps would you like us to see put in place to ensure that internal democracy within political parties, doesn't matter any party now, is really strong such that the best candidates can come forward?
Now, I have two suggestions. One for the political party, that if the courts are strong. Now, the court, to me, the court is like the spinal cord. The court is to the society what the spinal cord is to the human being. If the court is compromised, then the society collapses. If the spinal cord of an individual is injured, the individual collapses. So if the court will be strong, if today, perchance, the court rules in Secondus' favor, I can assure you tomorrow such thing will not happen again because they know that there is a court there. But if the courts don't, and we know what happens in the political field, they will commit an act of impunity deliberately and say go to court because they think that they can go to court and compromise the court. And once the court is compromised, the court will not do what is right, then that is the end of it. Then the second suggestion, which I have made a proposal for the amendment of the Constitution on the issue of these legislators that I said, is that let us remove the powers of effecting the vacation of seats of a defective legislator from the leadership of the House and return it to the party. If the sponsoring party is the one that has powers, if, for example, PDP is the one that has powers, to arrive to INEC and tell INEC that our member has moved out, then no member will move out, and the party will be very much strong, and no member of the party will feel strong enough to.
We'll hear you on that one.
So these are the two suggestions.
Yeah, but just to add a little bit before I go to Mr. Shome, when you talk about the courts, I don't think that if the court rules in favor of Mr. Secondus in this matter can be a yardstick to determine how certain things or the spine will be fixed. No, it's wider than that because how are judges appointed in the first place? Those are fundamental issues. Why do political parties always insist on putting their persons in certain positions in judges? How do they survive with that? What about their remuneration? How do they draw their salaries? Is it directly from source? Those are fundamental issues that parties make sure that judiciary is dependent upon any executive, either the center or the subnational. Those are some fundamental challenges that need to be addressed if we need to talk about the independence of the judiciary. So with due respect, I don't think this particular case will have a huge implication to that extent. I stand corrected, though. But Mr. Shomi,
okay.
yeah, I get you.
Let me quickly
no, before you do that, we're looking at time, yes. Let's just bring him to Shomi. Maybe we'll come back to you if we still have some time. Give us your own suggestions as to strengthening internal democracy within political parties on a wider scale.
As I looked at the whole space, I began to ask myself, why has it continued like this, and why do we not see even anything different in the other party? And I became convinced that human beings are creatures of habits. And among the habits that people copy are the habits and the attitude of their leaders. And I convinced myself reasonably that it is the fact that we started this democratic journey first with Olusegun Obasanjo, a military man, who, with due respect, would not have understood what democracy really is all about. And then again, when we had a second opportunity with Muhammadu Buhari, who is also another military officer, who truly will know, and people will copy them. Why am I saying this? What I see to be at the center of this challenge is that certain individuals at different levels have appropriated to themselves the right to create political party in their own image to serve their own agenda. And for people who have presidents, who we say is the leader of the party, then maybe they have someone that can stop them in their stride. In the case of the PDP that is not in power at the federal level, it means that it must not contend with the recalcitrant attitude of governors, who are probably in our own case just about 13, who would then appropriate to themselves under some very warped thinking the totality of the opinion and the know-how of a political party, some of whom have not even stayed long in the party compared to people like us who have been here bleeding for this party forever and ever. So I think the first thing we need to first of all understand is that it's time to change the idea that an elected member, however highly placed, is greater than the whole of the party. Therefore, I'm saying clearly, the era of the president is leader of the party has to go. The era of governors are the leaders of the party in their state has to go, so that we can then have political parties and their organs who gave birth to these governors and president being the custodian of the principles and the ideals of their party. That will help, number one. Number two, I think that we have gotten to a point where we must ask ourselves the fundamental right of association that we allow people to jump from one party to the other. Perhaps it's time for us to review it now. What do I mean? Political parties don't have names of individuals on their ballot. Therefore, a ticket must be considered to belong to a political party. And if anything happens to that individual, then the political party who had garnered the vote ab initio must be allowed to do a replacement of that fellow. I think something in that order. And then maybe a third one will be for the electorate to calmly punish those who make it a habit to jump up and down.
Okay, because I was going to ask, in all of this, none of you mentioned the electorate, but yes, you have. So that is an interesting part because power belongs to the people. So we need to get that. But it's not going to drop on a lot of the people anyway. People have got to be up and doing and ensure that they do what they have to do. So, gentlemen, Dr. Ado, unfortunately, we couldn't come back to take that submission of yours, but I appreciate both of you for coming in today. So we'll look to see what happens in Port Harcourt today. So, Mr. Segun Shomi and Dr. Omar Ado, thank you both for coming on today.